You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling. I'm Mandy.
I'm Jessica.
And this is
The Coop. Today, it's Mentor Mom Squared.
Ooh,
We're
doing math.
We're doing some math. It's so fun to hear not just from a mom who's been through it, but also from her daughter who now homeschools her own two children.
Yeah, she's in our co-op, and we've known them about 4 years. And multi-generational home, multi-generational involvement in our co-op.
Yes, it's wonderful. But before we jump in, Mandy, what's your scoop on the Coop?
Okay, robotics class is starting soon.
Yes.
And it's a team, and it's leveled for a range of ages.
Okay.
And so my youngest is with ones that are her age, and then my older two are together with kids that are her age, and it's about 4 to 7 kids per group. But the coolest thing is this robotics group led by one of our co-op moms. It's Lego based.
Oh, nice.
And they're using Spike Prime, which is their new program. And there's a
Lego's new program.
Yeah, Lego's new program. And so you can buy it on your own. You don't have to be part of a robotics class, but you can buy the set on your own. And it's a website link. And they have all these projects where you can use this kit. And you put together so many different robotic mechanized things. And that has sounds. And it's all coding and attaching Legos to a hub and connecting them so they move, and some look like robots, some look like rides, some look like conveyor belts. It's really cool.
That's
and
awesome.
So we practiced. Each of my children got to practice with their set, and Spike Prime is for the older kids.
Okay.
So my younger one hasn't practiced yet with her younger kid version, but it was so cool because my daughter, we had it for about 3 or 4 days. She did 9 builds and coded it with fart noises, her words, her sounds, music. It was really cool. And then my son did about 4 or 5 of them, but it was neat. And I love that it was practice. So then when they get together with the robotics class, they already have the knowledge going in, so they can truly create something together,
Right.
and invent their own robot together,
Right.
with having similar skill sets.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My 16-year-old homeschooled niece just graduated from high school.
Oh.
Yeah. And so she's been homeschooled her whole life. She's the oldest of 4 kids, and she had this incredible opportunity to move to London to have a spot in a professional ballet company training program and pursue a BFA in dance. So because she has the ability to get a college degree, she needed to be done with high school. So it was a last minute decision to expedite her college or her high school education and get that done this summer. And she did it. She worked hard. It was amazing. And then we really wanted to honor all of that hard work and the transition into her new phase of life with a graduation ceremony. And we did it in the backyard. My sister-in-law did an amazing job coordinating a beautiful brunch ceremony. We had donuts and
wonderful. I'm there.
And fruit and cocktails.
Where did she get the cap and gown? Because I saw a video.
Oh, yeah.
And she had a cap and gown and everything.
I don't know, maybe borrowed it. I didn't
Yeah.
ask that.
I even saw your niece move the tassel from one side to the next while she was hugging her dad.
Yeah.
What I know this is your scoop, but
Yes.
what I loved about seeing the video is the intimacy of the graduation.
It was really sweet. We actually had a ton of family in town this past week when we had the ceremony. And so it got to be very sweet with a bunch of people who would have loved to have been at her graduation, and we got to make that happen. And it was very sweet. We had chairs set up in the backyard. It almost looked like a wedding ceremony, all set up, and we didn't have to listen to a bunch of other people. We only got to hear about the one graduate we cared about, and she was the valedictorian, of course. So she gave a speech. Her dad was the master of ceremonies and officiated, and her uncle prayed over her and her new journey. So it was very sweet and very customized to our family, which I really adored. Her siblings and my child, my oldest, went up and they all did an acrostic poem with her name and shared the things they loved about her. And so it was just really a sweet ceremony, really meant for all of us. But she's just such a sweet kid, and she did that. My sister-in-law even spoke, and of course we were all crying by the end of it. So I'm filming the whole thing, standing up, and I'm like, but it was just
Can you
really
hear
special.
you in the background?
No, I silent cried. But it was just really sweet to be able to celebrate that, and just to know that homeschooling doesn't mean you don't get those experiences. And in fact, you can make the experience even more of what you love, and you can take out all the things about at graduation you don't love.
And you can pick the time of day where you're not going to be melting in the heat.
Yeah, we still were.
Because it was a hot week.
It was a hot week. So even by 10 a.m., we were all in the sun dying. But, you know, that's part of the normal graduation
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's
so,
all my graduation experiences. I know it was always
But we could have done it later. We could have done it at a different time. But we did it when it worked best for the whole family to be there. And that was what was important and special. And all the little kids, because there was probably 10 kids under the age of 5, were able to just run around.
That's so cool.
And we didn't have to watch them too hard because there weren't strangers there.
Right.
We were in a home we were comfortable with. So that was nice.
Yeah, did they play the dun, dun,
we
dun,
did,
dun,
just
dun,
as she walked forward
dun.
to her seat. And then we did not have to hear it the entire time as, 100 or 200
There's
graduates
a rite
are
of
circling.
passage where you have to hear that for at least 20 seconds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we did it, and that was done. Yeah. So it was a wonderful graduation. There's a reel on our Instagram page, The Coop Homeschool. So if you'd like to see that sweet moment in my niece's life, you can.
Cute.
Yeah. All right. Back to the interview. We had an amazing time interviewing Kim and Keeley. Keeley is now grandmother to Kim's children who are a part of our co-op. Keeley homeschooled Kim in the 90s. And then Kim now homeschools her kids, and they're just a wealth of information, experience, and knowledge. And so we appreciate them in our lives and learn from both of them. And we thought that you would as well. Thank you so much for being willing to join us and do this interview.
Of course.
We're very excited.
Very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, we feel so blessed that you would give your time. So I think our listeners will really appreciate hearing from both a mom and daughter who experienced homeschooling together.
Yeah, we're special.
Yeah, you are. We love you so much, too. We have
We love
enjoyed
you guys.
homeschooling with you guys. So.
Yes. And so, Keeley, you homeschooled both your son and your daughter.
Yes.
And now, Kim, you are homeschooling your 2 girls.
Passing it on.
Yep. And Kim is a part of our Coop group. So whenever we talk about that, this is one of our really fun moms.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the lucky few.
Exactly. And so it's been a real joy for Mandy and I to be able to experience, this, it's 2 generations of homeschooling and 3 generations of you ladies together. And it's just been so neat for us. And so we're glad we get to share all of that.
And you host a killer Halloween party.
Yeah.
We
Most
so
importantly.
enjoy it. Yeah, it's so much fun.
All right, let's jump in. Keeley, tell us about you and your homeschooling journey.
Well, we began in 1992, and it started out as a temporary solution. My son, who did kindergarten in public school and first grade, during first grade started having some issues related to immaturity. He was a early September baby, so started kindergarten just barely 5 years old. And he did fine through kindergarten, but in first grade it was hard for him. And so I was looking for a solution, and oddly enough, we were at a parade, and there were 2 women next to me chatting about homeschooling, and I couldn't help but overhear. And so I had to, ask them, what is this homeschooling you're talking about?
Tell me more.
Tell me about it. And they were kind enough to, give me information and their phone number, and that's what started it. And initially it was, let's just do this temporary and see how it goes. We did it through the summer because I didn't have all the information that we have now. But we decided to try it through. So we tried it through the summer, and it was fun. So we did it through 2nd grade, and we thought, okay, he's good now. He's matured enough. And we had moved to a different school, and he did 3rd grade. And I was very involved in the school, vice president of the PTA. I ran their computer lab. I volunteered. I volunteered. I was there all day, every day, and they let me bring her with me because she was just 4. And
Sit
then
and play Oregon Trail in the corner.
yeah, she did a lot. and it was great. It was it was fine. And then they started fourth grade, and he started fourth grade. She started kindergarten. About 3 weeks in, there were some issues, major issues with the staff at the school. The principal and some of the employees there were what I felt was abusive to the kids, and I went so far as to go to the district and the district psychologist, and then when I did that, they started to take it out on my kids.
Wow.
So it reached a point about 3 weeks in that I said, I told the kids, I said, look, if you want to stay, you can, but I can't be here. I cannot watch this go on anymore. Right. And these are problems that I was surprised to find in a small town public school, but they were there. I grew up in Los Angeles, went through LA Unified, and I blamed all the problems on big city schools, but it doesn't have to be exclusively big city. There's a lot of problems. And so the kids said, nope, get us out of here. And
we don't have to go.
Yeah, okay. That's right. We'd had that year or so with Jonathan through second grade. That was so wonderful. So we knew we had a way out. And we never looked back. We had a great time, and I loved it. And it was from 1992 to 2008, roughly 16 years.
Wow. I know. I love that. And then would you say that you had any particular philosophy through your years of homeschooling?
Well, I was very influenced by John Holt and the Moores. I don't know if you're familiar with Raymond and Dorothy Moore. And so mostly it was unschooling for us. Right. That was where my passion lied. I enjoyed that. And also at the time there were very limited choices in curriculum.
Yeah.
This was way back when we didn't have the internet, so you couldn't just order a curriculum online. You had to go to some sort of an educational fair and hope that you found
YouTube
something.
reviews.
No, there were very limited choices, and I didn't at the time wasn't exposed to any that I felt good about. So I latched on to unschooling, and mostly I would say I did my own thing. It was mostly unschooling, but I felt very strongly that they needed to read and write and do basic math at least. That was very important to me. So we focused on those, and especially reading. And I wanted them to learn to love to read, because Jonathan left public school with an aversion to reading. He did not. Yeah. He didn't like it, and I thought, this is sad, because my husband and I both are big readers. We read all the time, and we wanted our children to love reading. Yeah. So that was my focus with him. Was in the beginning was let's turn that around, and we did.
He's an avid reader as an adult.
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely, and he loved it. And it was just a matter of letting him choose what he wanted to read. So mostly unschooling, I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kim, is there anything that you would add to that? Any little details there?
Let's see. Yeah, for me it was just what I was put right into. As she said, I only went through about 3 weeks of kindergarten, so it wasn't a big shift for me. It was just kind of the norm, and I loved it because I got to stay home with my mom and have like homemade lunch and watch Nick Jr.
You didn't miss a thing.
I know, yeah. So I loved it, and it was a great experience from my perspective.
That's awesome. What did you think about homeschooling your kids? Did you feel that it was best for them now that you see them as adults?
Now, I would do it again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are some great, incredible benefits that come from homeschooling, and the number one being that the kids get to really be themselves. There's not that incredible peer pressure to conform. Yes. And also the family time. It was our life. It was our lifestyle, and we loved it. We got to vacation in the off season. We got to go to Disneyland for a week in the off season. We didn't have to go only in the summer months, or when school was out. We could do whatever we wanted, and we had a lot of fun traveling and seeing places and working that into our schedule. So I think it was great. It served us well as a family. That my children are incredibly close. They're very close for brother and sister. And
yeah, I've noticed that. And it's so fun to be around all of you guys as a family. Yeah. You can tell you're a very tight family unit. And what I love that you pointed out, Keeley, is instead of being a school focus, it was family focused.
Yes, it was, and we loved it, and we had a great time doing it together. We were, it was a lot of fun. I wouldn't change a thing.
Sweet. Good. Makes me feel like I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
And they're both happy, functioning, well-adjusted adults, so
Yes.
I'm happy.
And then Kim, you were homeschooled and then you chose to homeschool. So I'm guessing you had good experiences. What did you think about homeschooling?
Absolutely. For me, as we were saying, the family thing was just huge. That stuck with us forever. It didn't end when we turned 18 and we moved off. We were close forever, still are. I mean, we see them every single day. My kids get to see their grandparents every single day. And my brother and I are best friends still. So having that was big for me. I wanted my kids to grow up sharing all the same experiences. And I think I see that a lot with families who have kids in different grades. They're in their own friend groups and they all have their own interests and they're doing things at different times. They don't have a lot of time together.
Right.
And so they miss out on those opportunities to have those shared experiences and things like that bond them. And that was a big part of it for me. And maybe just a little bit of selfishness, like not wanting to
share your kids.
to share them. Yeah, I want to have that time with them.
Yeah.
It was special. You and Jonathan are almost 4 years apart, too.
Yeah.
So,
And a boy and a girl.
girls.
So.
And it didn't keep you from being independent. You still have your own life, your own, I don't want to say it, value system, because I know you don't have a completely different value system, but you make your own independent choices as an adult, and you're raising your kids the way that you want to. There's no pressure to do anything even the way that you were raised.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've made changes to, everybody gets to look back on their childhood and say, okay, I like this, I didn't like this, so we're going to take this and modify it and add what I wanted in, right?
And I'm guessing our kids are going to do the same.
Exactly.
And that's what every mom wants, right?
Yes.
We want our kids to take the best of what they experience and multiply that.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Make it better.
Improve upon it in every way. That you always hope that as a mother, right?
Yeah.
Like, you say, okay, I'm not perfect, I know that, but hopefully you'll do a little better, and then your kids will do a little better. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just keep paying it forward.
That's right.
I feel very lucky that there wasn't too much I had to modify, though. So.
Thank you.
Do you feel like you were offered a choice about homeschooling?
Yes, she did always tell us, if you don't like it, we can sign you up tomorrow if you want. But
Not as a threat?
maybe sometimes, some days, but most of the time we definitely were willing participants in it. We didn't want to, especially as younger children. We were very happy and content.
Jonathan had done kindergarten and first grade and third grade in public school, so he knew what it was all about.
Yeah.
And she was there enough to witness it. So.
Yeah.
They there wasn't a lot of mystery.
And you probably wanted to be where your brother was.
Yeah, exactly. It was a happy home, so there was nothing I was trying to get away from.
Exactly. That's really awesome. Now that you are able to look back, would you still be homeschooled all over again?
I would, yeah. 100%.
It was the right thing for you?
Yeah.
And I asked her brother this question, and he said 100%. 100% would choose homeschooling. He loved it. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Now this one is for both of you. What did you enjoy most about homeschooling or the lifestyle that homeschooling brought you, and what brought you the most joy?
You want to go first?
Well, being together, the time we got to spend together, the experiences we got to share, it was wonderful. I loved it. I mean, there were moments in the day where I can remember one time when Kimmy she must have been 5 or 6, and she noticed a trail of ants and then a little anthill outside, and she wanted to know what's going on down in the hole, So we pulled out all the books we had. This is pre-internet, right? Pulled out all the books and encyclopedias and sat there looking at ants, and then we went to the library and got books on ants, but we were just able to take that moment and run with it because we weren't rushing.
An on-the-fly unit
so
study.
Cool.
Right. Yeah, they weren't just a nuisance. They were a lesson.
And just sitting there for hours looking at them and talking about them, it was just so wonderful.
Well, I had it also just having that moment where I, being a kid and having the time to sit and observe things, not being rushed constantly. There was a lot of free time where we could sit and think about things,
right?
Be with our own curiosity a bit. So, yeah.
It was wonderful.
For me, it was a lot of having the freedom to pursue my own interests. Because, I was never into sports or anything like that. So I was into music and I was able to take music lessons. I took vocal lessons, drum lessons, piano lessons, guitar lessons, and
That's awesome.
performed a bunch and had those opportunities because I had that extra time. And also having my dad also being a musician, he was there to, come home at the end of the day and we could play together, and he could give us an impromptu guitar lesson. We could learn a song together. And that's something we still do today as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think if I was looking in, I would say that's something that seems like it would bring a lot of joy. Just those shared experiences and the time you had to pursue them together.
Yeah. And my brother being a musician as well, that's something that really bonded us too. We had that shared love and that shared experience with our dad, and she was always there being the best supporter and cheerleader. We tried to get her to play and sing, but she didn't want to. So
I didn't quite have the same love of it that they did.
Every band needs an audience. So.
That's right. and a cook.
Yes.
Well, one of my favorite Coop group moments, and I've told you this, is you and your dad singing White Rabbit.
Yep.
At our Mad Hatter Tea Party.
That was so fun.
It was magical.
Cool. Really
we got chills. The kids were, you could hear a pin drop other than the music,
It was really fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to do that with him. It was fun for him too, to come and
loved it. Yeah.
perform for a group of kids. who
Yeah.
were probably a lot of them had never even heard that song before, and to be totally engrossed in it.
I think that's the first time you ever did that song for a group of kids, but
Yeah.
it worked.
One song.
That's right over the head. So
No.
Yeah, that was a sweet moment. Okay. Community. Keeley, how did you find community? I know you were saying the internet was not around then, so you met those moms, and then how did you know what to do after that?
Luckily, they gave me some good phone numbers, and back in the day, before the internet, it was a network of homeschooling parents, and usually there was a state contact. I think we had California Homeschool Association was formed by then, and they were a resource. You could call them. And they usually had someone that had a list of a contact in every county.
Got it.
And then you would get a number for, somebody hopefully that had a support group or was at least a resource for some, information, or you just hooked up with people that way. And the grocery store, the library.
you see another person out with children in the middle of a weekday. You're like,
I know who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And there was that. You're like, hey, homeschooler?
Homeschoolers are sick day.
Right. So, however we could, we did it. You find, we didn't have a lot of the resources that are available today. Like the Coop is an amazing support group, and we didn't have anything like that. Even, the most we had park days and a few organized, activities, some parties, but it wasn't the level that you guys are able to achieve, and it's amazing. I love it.
She was always really great at wherever we were, always finding a group, but it was kind of more of a public, let's meet up at the park this time of day, and there could be 5 people, there could be 40 people, you could know all of them, you could know none of them, so it wasn't a very predictable group. We had our people we were close to, but kind of variable beyond that.
Yeah, and those kinds of things still exist today. You have people who just show up to those random events, and then you have the people who are wanting a solid community of regulars, which is what we've been going for.
It's wonderful. It's a beautiful thing. I so admire everything that you guys do.
Oh, thank you.
So sweet.
It's just great.
Is there anything that you would do differently about finding community or having community if you were to do that over again?
Well, our situation was kind of unique. We moved a lot. It just happened that way. We were living in LA when the kids were very young, and they were born there, and we wanted to get out. So we moved our way out, and we ended up in Santa Maria, or a little town outside of Santa Maria, Orcutt, for many years, and we loved it. But Clark's job took us to other cities, and then we ended up back in Southern California. So we had to move a lot, and I think if I could have controlled that, I think that would have been nicer for them if they could have been established with a group of friends early on and stuck with them, because we had I think that was nice. I think that was a little harder.
Yeah, I think we agreed on that. I was trying to think of it too, and I think that was the big thing, because like I said, she was great about finding these groups for us. So everywhere we lived, I did have at least one person I was like best friends with. But then we would move, and then it was kind of always the feeling of being the new kid, you know, the new kid in the group. So that definitely made it a little more challenging to have those long-lasting friendships.
Right.
Some of them, you know, we were pen pals. We'd be pen pals forever after that and write each other letters. And
Yeah.
I even went to
That's what we did
Coachella
in the
with one of
90s.
my 5-year-old friends. So she came out and visited me.
Well, it was a good thing you were homeschooling, though,
Yeah.
because I can't imagine switching schools that often and how hard that would be.
That would be much harder, yeah.
For sure. But
Yeah.
that also, you know, made it an easier decision on us to move because we didn't have those school district confinements. We could say, well, we can homeschool
Go
wherever and
right.
whatever, you know, got to follow the career sometimes. Yeah. But it worked out.
That's good.
She has us now.
Yeah.
Yes,
I know where we're supposed to be.
That's right. It's a wonderful thing.
Kim, are there things from your homeschooled upbringing that you use in homeschooling your own kids?
Yes, definitely. So mainly, like I said, the family closeness, just prioritizing that. And also read alouds.
Yes.
They were both amazing with that. My dad would take time, you know, every single night and read whatever we were into at the time. When we were really young, he would read to my brother and I together.
Cute.
And we remember just laying in bed and just, you know, enjoying that so much. And then as I got older, he read the whole Lord of the Rings series with
really?
me. And it was just him and I, so that was really special,
Like
you know.
60 hours.
It was a lot. It was a commitment.
Yeah.
I love that.
But yeah, I was super into Lord of the Rings after that, so it really made a lasting impression on me.
Yeah, I read to them during the day.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
That
so we
was
got
like
it on
a
both
quiet
ends.
That was always our quiet time, like in the afternoon after we ran our errands or went to whatever activities we were doing that day. And then we'd come in and I'd, you know, read to them. And we always I read a lot of books that they wouldn't read on their own.
Yeah, it was the historical stuff, which is, you know, great. A little boring as a child, but
You can appreciate more now.
now I'm glad to have been exposed to it all.
Not that you haven't given us a lot of advice already, but this section is going to be a little bit more about advice for homeschoolers based on your experience. Keeley, what is one thing you feel like homeschooling parents need to focus on in preparing their child for life?
I thought a lot about this because there are so many things. And I kind of came up with making sure that there's two things. Making sure that your child knows how to learn and enjoys learning.
That's cool.
Because no matter what they might decide to do at some future point in their life, they will have that ability if they love to learn and know how to learn and enjoy it. So I think that's very important. And there has to be some discipline. And I'm not sure I always achieved that perfect balance of discipline and freedom. But they have to have some, and I don't mean discipline as in punishment. I mean
Self-structure, self-regulating.
Yes, some ability to self-motivate through difficult challenges, and sometimes that can come from having projects that are time-consuming, that are long-term projects. And I was talking to Jonathan about this too, and he agreed. He a lot of his friends that were homeschooled may some of them have trouble when they first turn 18 or when they get a job or go to college. At first that discipline can be a little hard for some of them. They always get there, but you know, he thought that perhaps that would be something that would be a good thing to focus on, and I think he's right. And I try to do it through chores mostly.
Yeah.
That was my structure. We had very structured, strict chore schedule, and I wanted them both to be capable of doing everything in the house, and they did that. So
We can do our laundry.
they can
clean a
clean their
toilet.
house. They can cook basic food. I was really concerned about that. So, but I think those are a couple of the things that I would think that are very high up there on the list of importance.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And then I know, Kim, you have quite the chore list for your kids.
I do, yes. It's growing as they grow. I just taught Lucy how to scrub a toilet the other day for the
That's
first time. I've been a little
amazing.
worried about that one just because I, don't want that splashing. I wasn't sure, but I was like, okay, it's now or never. No time like the present. So we did it, and she managed. And
You can always do what I did. After
Yeah.
you guys would clean the bathrooms, I'd go in
Go back
and tidy up a few things that weren't quite there.
Certainly have
But I
to
never
do
let
that.
them know I did that.
Yeah.
So
It's
they
about
thought
the work.
they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about the work.
And the
and-
sense of self, accomplishing something. on
Yeah,
their own.
and having a routine and structure, I've, experienced both with my kids when we've had a super relaxed schedule with no daily responsibilities, in the summer especially. And we usually start out that way because we're just so relieved to have nothing going on.
Totally.
But then by, mid-July, I'm like, okay.
Enough of that.
We gotta lock this down because it's getting out of control. But yeah, especially as my oldest is getting older. She's 10 now, so she can handle a lot more. And I'm kind of realizing that, and it's nice to know, I have another, fully almost grown person here who can help me do these things.
And we all have a 10-year-old, and Mandy also has a 12-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you were saying about having the self-discipline and to be able to go to work someday, while we want them to have wonderful childhoods,
Yes.
we do have to help them transition. And so I think you make a great point about that.
Mm-hmm.
How you can't just expect them to have nothing
Yeah.
and then go into going to work, or if they do choose college,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Right.
going to be a totally different thing than a very relaxed homeschool schedule.
And
So
it can be achieved through various methods. I was thinking about some kids that are maybe in 4-H, like raising an animal.
Yeah,
That's something they
definitely.
have to attend to every day,
For
whether
sure.
they feel like it or not.
right, they're always preparing for a show. They have
Yes,
a lot of
lots
responsibility.
Yeah, so having something, even if it's a very long report that takes them, a week or two to prepare for, just with a deadline, so they've got to, buckle down and do it in a certain time frame.
Yeah.
Anything like that can, I think,
love
can
that.
impart that, but it needs to be happen more than once. I think it's something that,
Okay. What is one thing that you are super glad you used, did, or experienced through homeschooling?
We talked about this one, and we both agree that I personally could not remember a single curriculum we used. Like the name of one, I know there was lots of workbooks here and there, but it didn't stand out to me in my memory at all. For us, it was a lot of experiences, and those are the things that I
cool.
remember the most and that had the biggest impacts on me. For example, when the King Tut exhibit came to LA, I think I was like 14, and I had been very passionate about Egypt for
She
a
wanted to
long
be
time as a
Egyptologist.
kid. I was super into that,
so
and so
awesome.
they made it a priority to make sure to take me to that, and that was amazing. And I still remember that as one of my favorite experiences in life.
So cool.
And then my dad would take us to concerts all the time, and so that really instilled that passion of live music, performing. And, he took me to see Jewel as my first concert, and she was my
cool.
favorite, so that was very
that.
inspiring for me. And another just special moment to share with my dad. He took us to see Ray Charles before he died.
Wow.
We went to see Paul McCartney, which is probably like
Wow.
the apex of my whole life.
Definitely.
But yeah, so lots of experiences. We did family road trips.
Yeah, we went
to
to
Oregon.
to Lewis and Clark's winter encampment there.
Yeah, uh-huh.
We did a lot of saw most of the missions in California. We tried to see them all.
Yeah. Those are the
We
things
did a
that
lot of
stand
things.
out.
Do you
the
remember
most to me.
digging your archaeological dig in
yeah.
the backyard?
Did you rope it off and everything?
I didn't find
she was only
anything
9.
too exciting. Found a couple dog bones, but I was into it for like a week.
Wow,
It was the
that's
same summer that I
amazing.
read every Nancy Drew book, so I had a lot of time on my hands, apparently.
She read every single, and I think there were 53 of them.
Got through those, and I had to do
in
something,
one summer.
so
Yeah,
started
she was
digging a
9.
hole.
I love it.
That'd be fun to do a Nancy Drew book club in a couple years.
Oh yeah,
When
I
you
loved
grow.
those. They were so fun.
Well, I have to throw this out there. You won an award at our Keeleys
Yes.
Awards night.
I'm very
and
proud of it.
What was that award?
I believe it was Always Ready for a Party.
Yes. But I have to say, I see this connection there.
Uh-huh.
Your homeschool, the joy of your homeschool were these experiences. And so it makes sense that you're like, yes, to the
Yeah.
experiences for you and for your kids. You're always one of the first people to say, yes, we're in. We're
Yeah.
going to do this
Yeah.
thing. And I love that enthusiasm. It always makes it worth planning something.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I know you'll be there
Yes.
and you'll be excited.
And I'll have a playlist ready.
Definitely.
We talked about that too, though, because that's one of the amazing things about having our group is that all the moms have something unique to contribute and share with the kids. Like we've got a biology high school teacher.
Yeah.
We got a dance teacher. You know, we have someone who was super into architecture. And I'm like, well, I didn't get a college degree. I don't have anything like that to offer, but I can offer my love of passion for like music and just having these experiences. Like that's what I can contribute.
And positivity. It's
For sure.
invaluable.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm and positivity and encouragement that you bring to the group.
Yeah.
And the
it
kids
makes such a
recognize
big
it
difference.
too. Our kids know, and they love to have you there.
That's so sweet.
There's just such a, it's the positive vibe,
That's great.
We love that.
Yeah, it's amazing how many awesome educational opportunities that we get. But I think all the things that really bond our kids are those little moments where they just get to run around and dance together and eat a bowl of cheese puffs or whatever it is. Do the limbo with their moms and dads. So those experiences, that's the stuff for me.
I agree. Okay, this is another one for both of you. What is one regret that you have in regards to homeschooling, and would you do anything differently about that?
Do you want me to lead this one?
Go ahead.
I think what you're going to say stems off of it. So, I personally, it's hard because, I was homeschooled up until I was 15, and then I made the decision I wanted to try public school. And she was like, okay, sure, we'll sign you up and you can go. And it was at a time where I had kind of outgrown a lot of my homeschooled friends.
And that's partially from the moving so much. So this group that we were in didn't have many kids her age. So it was
and just, had fallen out of touch with them, outgrown them. But I did have a group of friends, and they were all going to this high school nearby. So I was like, well, I want to be a part of that.
Right.
I did feel like I was missing out on something at that point. And so, I gave it a shot. I went, and it wasn't what I hoped it would be. It was disappointing. It was a public school with, I think there was 2,600 kids there.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest difference that I noticed was I was used to being treated as more of an equal by adults and having, my opinion valued and just being able to speak up when I felt like it. And so it was very much a culture shock going into that. And not only kids fighting in the lunch yard every single day, but that interaction with my teachers. I had a couple that were great.
Sure.
I had a history teacher who was awesome and very involved with the kids. But then I had a science teacher who was the football coach, and he did not care at all. People would just be throwing stuff around the classroom, and he would not. He was just sitting there reading a whole different book.
Oh, wow.
So I was almost like, I wanted to be there to learn, and it was not happening all the time. So I was kind of just like, why am I here?
You realized it.
I think she lasted 2 months, but I think
and then I just walked right off the campus.
I think 6 weeks of that was just to prove me, because I was like, you're not going to like it.
I was like,
I'm gonna be
6 weeks
of her was
watch me like it.
And then one day she did. She just left, and I think you called me and said, come get me.
I'm walking down the street. Come pick me up.
I'm done.
So that gets me to the point of I wish personally I had taken my own education a little more seriously.
Okay.
Always ready to have a party. Always ready to have a good time.
That's been a lifelong thing for me. But from that point, I wasn't mature enough to go straight to college, which is what I did. I tested out of high school, and I went straight to community college, which I was not prepared for. I went because they had an amazing musical theater program that I really wanted to do.
And you had done a summer
program there and loved it, and wanted to continue that. And she was like, okay, well, we can get you going with, all the other college courses. And I was just not at the maturity level to really commit to that and see it for the opportunity that it was.
Right.
So I, tell that to a 16-year-old, take their education more seriously. But
I was 22 and in college my senior year, and still just trying to find the fun everywhere and trying to see what classes I could skip.
Yeah.
And still get a decent grade.
Absolutely.
So, it's funny. It wasn't probably till mid-20s that I was like, oh, this is actually interesting.
Yeah, I went. Yeah, now I'm like, I wish I could go back to those classes. Now I would be so enthralled.
Fascinating. Yeah.
But so we had thought, maybe instead I could have just gone and just done the theater program. not tried to jump into classes I was just not ready for. Some kids are definitely at that maturity level.
Yeah, works for her brother.
Yeah,
Same
I've
age.
seen lots of kids who are totally mature enough for that, but I was not.
And that's a very important point we talked about. You've got to be able to recognize that your children are not going to all be the same, and
knowing your kid,
knowing each one's strengths and weaknesses, and being able to adapt and change, even if you're on course and you think that this is not working. Don't be afraid to dump it, change it totally, because that's would be my regret. Is I wished I had been a little more aware of how she was struggling with that, and done what she said and just said, okay, let's just drop those other classes and stick to the theater. And she ended up getting a job too after that as a waitress at 16 and working as a waitress at a sushi restaurant.
Well, that
worked
matures
great.
you a bit too.
I had the same job for 2 years. It was my
Mm-hmm.
first job I had for 2 years, and we played music there too.
She did that too.
So you'd moonlight as the guest artist.
It's true. I'd be serving, and I'd jump up on stage and sing, and then jump back down and go serve.
But that's what I think is so hard as a parent is when you're in it, it's hard to see it because you're in it.
Yes.
And then when you look back, it's like, oh, if I had just done this, it would have been,
Yes.
But it's so
Especially-
hard to have that vision and
sometimes
perspective.
Teenagers. It's, my brother was totally different than I. He was an open communicator.
Yes.
I was like, okay, I'm doing all the things you want me to. I'm going to go over here. Don't talk to me. Like,
and
I
then
would
do
just tell her
whatever
whatever
she wanted to do.
Tell her what she wanted to hear. So I was, in return, not communicating properly to her that I was struggling or that I didn't feel like I was ready for it or that I was feeling overwhelmed. I was just like, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. So
I remember knowing everything when I was 16.
Oh, yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
I can understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I tested out too. I took the California High School Proficiency, the CHISPA, at 15 and went to work full time.
Wow.
Yeah, at 15. So I kind of thought that, okay, well, they're getting an opportunity I didn't have to go to community college, and maybe they would be able to take advantage of that. And, you could accomplish a lot before you're 18 even in a community college. And, it wasn't what I thought it would be. But again, that's where I think my regrets are, is I should have been a little more, concerned and watching closer to see, was this really a good situation for her, because I don't think it was. So.
Yeah.
That's
a hard one.
Yeah.
But it's important to just be able to recognize that, because now for your kids, we can't be perfect parents. And you won't be a perfect parent either.
I already haven't been. So I would say it even relates to, I've had a 5-year-old before, and I have a now 5-year-old again who's starting kindergarten this year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've learned from so many of the mistakes I made the first time. So
Yeah.
with Lucy, my oldest, when she was 5, she was having a lot of vision issues.
Right.
So she was struggling with reading and just, looking at pages because of that. And I felt this pressure as a new homeschooler. I had this shame, guilt that I was not doing something right. And so I, in turn, was just turning around and forcing it on her and, having these power struggles and, working the poor kid when she was having issues that wouldn't allow her to do it the way she,
And you have no way of knowing that.
Exactly.
And that's what's so hard.
And now I have a 5-year-old who loves schoolwork, and she is so ready for it. So it's I could totally do no kindergarten with her, but she wants to do it.
Right.
So it goes back to that knowing your kid, recognizing where they're at developmentally and playing to that. Because with my youngest, I really feel like I'd be doing her a detriment if I didn't present her with this curriculum, because she's so ready for it, But now I look back with Lucy and I totally regret it. I wish I'd given the kid a break, I'm like, I carry that guilt with me still,
know.
And I feel like that she has carried that a bit. She still is a little apprehensive towards learning because it was forced on her so much when she was struggling.
Yeah.
And I didn't recognize it and say, okay, we need to take a step back and deal with the other issue. Yeah. This isn't the most important thing right now,
we all have it.
Yeah.
But this can also happen in a school setting. It happened with John.
absolutely.
He had the same experience. It wasn't vision. It was other issues that were forced upon. The reading was forced when he wasn't ready. And so he developed this taste of it. So.
Yeah.
I have made
pounds in public school. That's the thing too, is you were able to back off
Yeah.
eventually and, let her get there in her time. But in school they can't. They have to force them through, and it's really intense.
Yeah, and we're there to see it too.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not there with your kid every day, you're not going to see all the clues to what's going on. They might not come home and tell you about it. Their teacher might not tell you about it. At least when we're there with them, we're able to really study it.
Yeah. Someone said when the tears, was it Pam Barnhill, I think, when someone like that, like Sarah McKenzie or whatever, one of them have said, when the tears start, the learning stops. But I have made all my kids cry so many times, and I'm a power througher. And then I'm like, well, let's just get through it. Let's just get this done. And then there's always so much regret.
I know, yeah.
Because it's like, why did I do that? Now I could care less if we had gotten through it.
Well, I think it goes back to the self-discipline. You want them to be able to sit down and do something that's hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes life, you have to do hard things. And so for us to judge that in the moment,
It's
whether
hard.
it's a back off moment or if it's a teach them that they can do hard things, it's
That's
hard
a
to
hard
learn.
call to make. For sure.
And especially when you're a new homeschooler, you have there is this pressure from family, from society, like, okay, so,
Look, they're
come on.
learning.
Are they
What are you
reading
doing?
yet?
Or the random
they're
person
not
who
ready
comes
yet.
up to your kid and grills them in the grocery store.
Yeah.
You want them to know the answer.
What are your times tables?
I'm telling you, I had people do that. I had people do that.
I feel like it's less. There's still the jokes on the internet about that,
Yeah.
but I don't think that I've encountered anyone who's met me with hostility.
Yeah.
But Southern California is pretty good about homeschooling. It's not
No,
an
it is,
uncommon thing
Definitely,
now.
especially
Very
in San
much so,
Diego,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I know it wasn't in the 90s.
No, in the 90s,
Especially.
I remember newer
What?
people being like, why are you here? Why aren't you at school?
Yes,
Like all the
This is
time.
absurd. And now they know. They're like, oh, you must be homeschooled,
Right.
you know.
Right? Yeah. It's
Okay.
so true.
I have another one. We may have answered this, so you tell me if you have anything different. What was something that you struggled with as a homeschool mom or homeschooled child?
Let me look at my notes here, because what number is that one?
That is number 10.
Number 10. I think for me, it was the stress of having my kids with me 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why I can't relate to that at all.
And you're not just a homeschooling mom. You're still a homemaker, or you have. And so going to the grocery store and going to the bank, I dreaded that because we had one income. We were on a budget. I had to use coupons and compare prices, and I'm in the grocery store with two kids that are rambunctious. I remember when your brother pulled the grocery cart over with you in it. And,
Oh my.
We did that at Costco
Yeah.
a few years ago.
Wow, the Costco cards are big.
They
So
are.
you're trying to focus on these prices and is this the coupon? And it was hard, and it got better when they got a little older, and I could give them the coupon and say, go find this.
Oh,
Right.
cute.
And that was helpful. But when they were too small to do that, I mean, literally, I would get to the counter and be in tears. And that the bank, she wandered off at the bank. I was making a deposit, and I was at the teller, and I'm like, hold your sister's hand. They're right here. They're right here. I'm doing my thing, and I turn, and she's gone. And I think she was about 2, not quite 2. She was
I don't
gone.
know what I went to go find.
And she was under a desk somewhere out. And I was like,
Just doing your own thing.
yeah, but it was terrifying. So I dreaded those things, but it was a short period of time, really, in the overall scope of everything. But that was hard. That was for me the stress of not having a break, really.
I understand that. Anything for you, Kim?
Let's see. Thinking. I have to cut this part out. I'm really thinking.
It's okay. If
I
you
don't
have
know why I
anything.
didn't wite anything for that one.
Yeah,
Maybe I thought it was
I
one
think
just
it's
for you.
kind of covered in 9 as well. You know,
Yeah.
that was definitely some struggle there.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
Cut that out.
What would be your advice to those considering or new to homeschooling?
I would say, first of all, kindergarten in California is optional, and don't feel pressured if your child is not ready, and let that be a year of fun and exploring. If you're thinking about homeschooling, let that be an experimental time and see what it's all about. Go find some homeschooling support groups and hang out and check it out. And also keep your eye on the prize. Remember the end goal. Your goal. What is your goal? For me, it was to raise happy, functioning adults. I didn't have a vision that I wanted them to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. It was, I wanted them to be happy, whatever brought them happiness, and function, just function well, be able to support themselves and function well in society and not be an axe murderer. At minimum.
Like yeah. It worked as far as you know.
You got to keep that end game in sight, and sometimes you have to stop and say, okay, is this argument that we're having or this struggle, is this really, where does it matter? How does it matter in the scope of our goal? Is it really worth arguing over, or should you just let it go?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got to know that it's a journey and to not expect to get it right away, because you're not gonna. You got to be able to adapt and tweak and follow your instincts. Don't get too caught up in the worry that you don't enjoy the time that you've done this to have with your kids, right? That's a big thing I have to remind myself constantly, is like, this is what I want. I want to have this time with them, and if I spend it stressing out or stressing them out so much that we're not even enjoying that time, then it defeats the whole purpose of what I'm there to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely know that you're gonna try things and they're not all gonna work, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're failing. It's just part of the process, really.
Absolutely. What would be your advice to those struggling with homeschooling? I know you shared some of your struggles, but what would you advise other people?
Yeah, just to add on to, it flows right out what I was saying, is to not be afraid to throw the curriculum like out the window.
Or ask for help.
Yeah, if you've got something that's not working for you, reevaluate, try something new.
And ask for help. Don't be afraid to reach out to family or friends, or if you're lucky enough to have a wonderful support group, ask other moms, what did you do? Did you encounter this? And if it's particular, like with a particular subject, we used the grandparents, we used anyone that we knew that was really excelled in a certain area. We would reach out to them and say, hey, can you help us with this? And they were always thrilled, and
it's a way for them to connect in a different way, in a meaningful way.
Very true.
With the child.
Very true. Yeah, so you can't be afraid to ask for help, and luckily you have a lot of great resources now with the internet, but even so, the best way is to find people in your community.
Having community makes such a big difference.
Right, because even now there's so much availability of resources that is overwhelming.
I'm sure it can.
So it's nice to be able to ask somebody who's used it, to call Kim, hey, we want to do exploring nature with kids. Tell me about it. And that kind of thing. It's nice to have people who are doing different things, and that's what's neat, is to see all the different things in action and how the kids are, because it's clear there's no one size fits all. There's no one right answer, because your kids are amazing and you're not doing what I'm doing.
Exactly.
And I think my kids are pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm not doing what Andy's doing, and so it's just nice to have that availability.
I remember when we were at one of your kids' birthday parties, we're sitting around the table, even your brother's there, and I was like, oh, what are you doing this year? And you're like, oh, it was like $30 to $40, and it was Waldeck Way's Year of Harry Potter,
yes.
And I was like,
Wizards and Wands.
I'm there, I'm buying it.
She
done.
did right then and there.
Yeah,
that's how Mandy does it.
And it was so magical, because then I actually had stuff to do these amazing Harry Potter days that I did.
Yeah.
And yours was spread out over a few months, right? And then I borrowed which I still have, your potion bottles.
We were able to share the supplies for it.
And it was so fun to see how you were doing it, and seeing this. You would put up stories on Instagram and be like, oh, look at the owl cage she has for, the owl. And it was just really fun to see how you were interpreting it, and then how I was interpreting it.
Yeah. Having people to, be springboards for you is so nice. And you can get that online. Having it in person it's just on another level,
right.
The community has made a humongous difference for me, because I think homeschooling can feel, you can feel very alone,
Yeah.
You can feel like you're just kind of on your own island and everyone else is over there. And I, before finding you guys, I had tried to find different communities and didn't feel like we fit in. So, and that can feel very hard too, when you're like, okay, well, we don't even fit in with these homeschoolers. So, but when you find your people, that's when the magic happens. And that it just,
And when your kids find their people.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's how we found you.
Yeah,
Lucy
yeah.
found her people.
Yeah,
and
Yeah, but I think asking for help is important.
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
Definitely, yeah. And don't forget the importance of PE,
Yeah.
of having a lot of physical activity.
Yeah.
Burn off that energy.
Oh, yeah.
Every day.
We had a trampoline in our backyard. I think that was our PE.
We also had the small one in the house that
Yeah.
she bounced on all the time. And we did a lot of park days.
And you were
Yeah.
a gymnast, too.
Yeah, I did gymnastics
Yeah.
and dance. So, yeah.
Yep, she did it.
All right. All of that has been amazing advice. But we have some parting advice questions for you to send our readers or listeners away with. What are your favorite resources that you used at the time you homeschooled?
Okay, yes, I thought about this, and the library was certainly our best resource. We went to the library every week. Our library had they could check out up to, it was like 50 books. It was crazy. And so my rule was you had to carry them. You could check out as many
you can carry.
as you could carry. They had book bags, and they would load up their bags every
Big
week.
stack of Animorphs.
They just I let them check out whatever they wanted, and we had a great time at the library.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And also I used to have them read every night. That was part of it. Was they could go to bed at 7. That was the bedtime, was 7, but they could read until 8 or 8:30. But that was it. They couldn't do anything else. No playing, no getting out of bed. They could bring some books to bed and read. And so, of course, faced with the choice, they read. And so they would read
Sometimes snuck
themselves
a
to
Game Boy
sleep.
under the blanket. But
I did not know that.
my little light.
But I remember when she was 2, when we first started doing that with her brother, she was 2 and she couldn't read yet, but she would take a stack of picture books with her and just look at the picture books in her bed, and those were great. But there was also some authors, of course, Holt. I loved his books. I wrote down the ones I remember reading. There was How Children Learn, and Teach Your Own, Learning All the Time. Those were great sources of information. And the Moores, I really enjoyed the Moores a lot. They had some great books. The Successful Homeschool Family Handbook was great. Better Late Than Early.
Oh.
That was a great book, and homegrown kids loved them. And of course, John Taylor Gatto, Dumbing Us Down, I loved his stuff too. And his was more reminding me of why I was doing it. It was very much supportive of the philosophy behind teaching your own kids. And Barbara Colarosa was very influential too. She's not a homeschooling author, but she had more discipline ideas, and she's the one that I quote all the time. Her thing was, if it's not physically or morally dangerous, don't fight about it, don't worry about it. And that, I think that was very important. As being a homeschooling parent, when you're with your child 24/7, there can be a lot of battles if you're not very careful.
Right.
And so I took that to heart, and it's like, okay, so when something would arise and she wanted to wear 2 different socks, or whatever.
There was an era when I would take a Sharpie and write the scroll from around the ring in the Lord of the Rings. I would write that around my wrist every day. And she was just
You
like
write the
like a
Elvish?
tattoo.
Yes.
Yeah, the Elvish.
One ring to bind
Same
them.
period where I was learning to speak Elvish. So.
I love it.
And she was just like okay.
And she wanted to wear whatever. I let her pick her own outfit. So sometimes she left the house looking a little odd, but
Still do.
But it's like, you're right. It didn't matter. And honestly, I look back now, none of that matters. It doesn't matter what stuffed animal they were dragging around. It doesn't matter whether they were sucking their thumb or none of that matters anymore.
Where they're sitting doing their schoolwork.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And whether they wore what you wanted them to wear or they wanted to wear, or
is there anything that you would say that could encourage parents whose kids might be struggling to want to homeschool?
Struggling to want to,
or stick with it.
Stick with
How
it.
can we encourage them to stick with it?
Okay. We talked about this, and I think that it's vitally important to have the opportunity for your child to have a full social circle, because that is what teenagers especially are craving is being with other teenagers.
That
And
is
I
what
know for
drew me
her
to
that
it.
what drove her to try public high school. And it's so important that they have the ability to have not just shared educational experiences with their friends, but parties and other experiences with them.
Right.
And I think if they have that, especially if you're lucky enough to stay in the same city for many years and they have this group of kids that they've grown up with, they don't want to be the odd one going to school.
Right.
Right.
You know,
True.
the norm is, hey, this is my people, my friends. I don't want to go over there. So,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, but unfortunately for her, she didn't have that at that time. So,
That makes sense.
yeah. And the whole, don't worry about the socialization, the S word, right?
Right.
Don't worry about it. That's not, it's not a problem unless you're, keeping them locked in the house. It's not a problem. It happens.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, like I think a big example is the culture shock of going to school and not having a social aspect with your teachers.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a wall, and I think that's a big thing that homeschoolers don't experience in that way.
Very much
is
so.
that there's no rules for socializing of who you can and can't.
Yeah.
And so, my kids talk to all you guys.
Exactly.
Well, selectively. But
Yeah, it's just a different, I guess, a different relationship to adults. Like I said, it's not like I felt like we were peers. Obviously, I still, respected my parents and followed the rules, but it was just the way that we spoke to each other that was so different. I wasn't forced to sit and be quiet and stand in a line and wait my turn all the time, so it's
Unless
just
you
very...
went to Disneyland.
Yes.
Right.
And I was willing to wait in those lines, so...
Yeah, that's where you learn that stuff.
Yeah.
You learn the ability to
Disneyland.
conform by going to Disneyland
That's right.
and Legoland. You get it in.
We'll
just get it in
conform for a
differently.
Mickey pretzel.
Well, thank you for all the advice. I think there's so much good stuff and we really appreciate it. And I loved hearing more about your story. We know we've asked over the years, but it's just neat to hear very specific answers. So
Yeah, we love you guys, and we're so thankful that you're both in our lives.
We love you guys too, and are equally, if not more, grateful for you. So
That's right. And I would say, don't be afraid of homeschooling. It's a wonderful thing, and I wouldn't change a thing. I loved those years, and when they were done, I was very sad.
Yeah, I think I
I
will
can
agree
feel
with
that
them.
already.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just creates a lifestyle that it's the envy of all of your friends.
Right.
Be able to just say, hey, we're going to just take today off and we're going to go to the zoo just because.
Hang out with my kids.
yeah.
We're just together, and it's such a unique thing, and
Yeah.
I love it.
Just being there every day. I loved it. It was great. And I think, for Clark and I, one of our primary motivating factors was we both grew up in different situations where there wasn't particularly wonderful childhood. So we wanted that for our children. We wanted to give them the best childhood, a happy childhood, and we thought that this was a way that we could do that, and they both feel that they had happy childhoods, so I feel successful because I think that's important.
Very much so. Yep, I loved it, and I'm loving doing it now. So,
And I love watching her. And you guys, I just love it. Whenever I see her, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I just love it. I think it's awesome.
And now it's time for
Gameschooling.
Today we're doing the Oregon Trail. Now, many of us played the Oregon Trail when we were growing up,
Yes.
and Kim mentioned it
Yeah.
as something that she did as a homeschooled child.
She did it while she was waiting for her brother at school, in
Yeah.
that good old computer lab.
Yeah, so cute. So it's still around, but in different forms. So
Yes.
there's the card game, which I'll talk about in a second. But why don't you talk about the...
Yes. We're doing U.S. history this year, and so I was checking our options for Oregon Trail games, and they have a handheld. So I'm showing a picture of it from my phone because I didn't bring it with me. But it's like a Game Boy size. And so it's the Oregon Trail game the way that we played it on the computer, except in a handheld format.
It's so cool.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
The kids had a blast playing it. I
fun.
wasn't going to introduce it until we got there topically, but we had that graduating niece of mine over for a slumber party, and I was like, here, check this out. And they played it for 2 hours.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, my kids have been obsessed with the card game, the Oregon Trail. you have died of dysentery.
Who doesn't remember that?
So it's based on the computer game, but it's a card game where you work as a team to try and get to Oregon before all of you die. So even if one of you die, you
Keep going.
You keep going. You're trying, and you can pull a card that says, "Oh, you need supplies," or "Oh, you dropped your supplies in the water. You can't cross," or something. You know, have too many supplies. You need to drop some supplies so you can cross. Or you can pull a card that says, "Snake bite. You died," and so it's But as long as you're playing with a team, my kids are saying how much they love it. They knew nothing really about it until they started reading the Oregon Trail books.
Yes.
It's a series of 8, and my daughter was just saying I connected more to the game because I read the book.
Yeah.
And I'm sure vice versa, they could connect more to the book if they play the games. And so if you want to introduce that series of books, that could be really fun for them. It's $18.50, and your first goal is to get your family covered wagon full of supplies and oxen to Chimney Rock on time. And so it's the same idea with the actual games.
Yeah,
so.
in the book, if you mentioned this, sorry, but it's a choose your own adventure book.
Oh, yeah, it's a choose your own adventure book. Yeah. So it's kind of a gamey thing too.
Yeah, I like that because you don't know. You might die of dysentery halfway through the book too and have to start over.
Yeah.
Don't take that path.
So check it out. They're linked on our show notes.
Thanks for listening. We love your support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, leave a rating and review to let us know how we're doing, and share our podcast with your friends who need a little community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling.